Promote a culture of inclusion, supercharge your communication, and unleash the full potential of your teams and leaders with the Inclusive Handbook collection from the Diversity Movement. As part of the collection, I wrote the Inclusive Leadership Handbook with Kurt Merriweather to empower leaders with tools needed to cultivate a culture that fosters creativity, innovation, and employee engagement. Through strategies, exercises, and self-reflection, leaders at all levels can enhance their effectiveness. Learn more at thediversitymovement.com/store. Use code HOL at checkout for 25% of your first order.
DEI budgets are under attack, but the goals haven't changed. Whether you're looking to increase your DEI knowledge, expand your market reach, or gain a competitive advantage in business, we have the solution. TDM Library is your single source for expert-curated DEI resources, strategies, and solutions, all designed to help you transform your workplace culture and be a more effective contributor. For $9.99 per month, you get access to our searchable subscription-based digital library. There, you'll find articles, practical how-to guidebooks, podcasts, award-winning microvideos, and more than 700 Q&As designed to help DEI practitioners, thought leaders, and executives create a more inclusive workplace. Whether you prefer to listen, watch, or read, we have the resources for you. TDM Library goes beyond the basics to dive deep into topics such as inclusive language, the business case for DEI, talent acquisition, and C-suite engagement. For less than the price of a sandwich, you get access to our library of more than 1,000 pieces of original, expert-curated DEI content. Join today and get your first 30 days free. Get your library card now at tdmlibrary.thediversitymovement.com.
Hey everyone, before we get to DT's interview with Capito Broadcasting's Adam Klein, I want to let you know about a webinar next week from the Diversity Movement. Given that we're moving past the election results, possibly, hopefully, it's time to turn our attention to coming together as a country. And that's just in time for the holidays and getting together with extended family. So the webinar is called Holiday Headaches, Dealing with Relatives Who Just Don't Get It, and it's November 19th at 12 p.m. Eastern. We all have those relatives we disagree with, so how can we have civil and respectful conversations? No matter what side of the political spectrum you're on, I'm sure we could all use some advice. So head on over to thediversitymovement.com/holiday-headaches and register for this free webinar. All right, let's get to the Donald Thompson podcast with Adam Klein.
You can't stop me, nothing's gonna stand in my way. Nothing.
Welcome to the Donald Thompson podcast. Today, my guest is Adam Klein. He is the general manager for American Underground and director of strategy for Capito Broadcast Systems. Adam, thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me on. Great to be with you.
So, Adam, you and I have been friends for a long time, but the years haven't been friendly for us keeping up. We've been cheering for each other on LinkedIn and liking each other's stuff. What I'd like you to do is introduce yourself a little bit and talk about your roles so that the audience just has a perspective on what you do and why, and then ease in just a little bit personal. Married,
Sure.
single, kids, no kids, and then we'll dive into some items.
Awesome. Sounds great. So I'm Adam Klein. I work for the American Underground, which is a startup space and an incubator for early stage companies in Durham. I also wear the other hat of being director of strategy, as you said, for Capito Broadcasting Company, the NBC and Fox affiliate in our market, and also involved in a lot of other things, real estate at American Tobacco, owns the Durham Bulls baseball team. So have been in these sort of dual roles for a little bit of time. I was the first employee at AU back in 2012. So one thing that listeners might be interested in is I've been in a startup ecosystem in Durham and the Triangle for a little over a decade. I was at the Durham Chamber before that, passionate about the way that entrepreneurship can influence the creation of wealth in a city, and also the role that entrepreneurs can play in a city in terms of its trajectory. So that's sort of by day. In addition to that, and definitely more importantly, I'm married to a woman I met in college. So we've been together for quite a while. We're celebrating our 13th anniversary right now.
Congrats.
Thanks. Yeah. And then have 3 young girls. So I've got a first grader, one who will go into kindergarten next year, and then I've got an almost 2-year-old. So in terms of a sort of random fact relating to them, I delivered one of them, which was not designed.
Okay, I was going to say, like, all right.
Yeah. First daughter, my wife had a long labor. She's amazing. She soldiered through it. When we had our second, like, our doctor was like, just stay home, when the labor pains start, and come in when you're X number of minutes apart, like they tell everybody. And so we did that. We were just starting to get to the point where the contractions were getting close enough together. We were like, all right, I was like, okay, I'm going to go get the car, let's, you like sort of get ready and we'll roll. And she stood up and was like, nope, this is starting. And so literally 2 minutes later, we're holding our middle daughter, Vivian, in our bathroom at our house. So it was a wild and crazy like transition. But if you asked my wife, would she do it again? She'd say, yeah, in a heartbeat, because you get this crazy story that I'm now sharing with the world. And baby was healthy, mom was well. So all was good.
Oh, that is phenomenal. And thanks for sharing that. That is definitely, I was going to say, what don't we know about you from LinkedIn? And you answered it, right?
Yep.
That you've had a successful delivery experience. That's awesome. As we look at what's going on, and let's then narrow it down to startups, talk a little bit about what you're seeing from an AU perspective about how some of the startups are dealing with, right, this new environment, right? Yeah. Whether it be pandemic, whether it be the recession that we're hitting, and some of the things that you're seeing.
I've seen a mix of things from our teams. I would say the vast majority hold their own. I think one of the things about our region is that few are heavily reliant on venture capital. They had to have a real business model going into the pandemic. So paying customers, revenue, and seen maybe a bit of that diminish. But I'd say on the whole, most are doing fine. Some who were concerned in Q2 have had a great Q3. So, it's not all rosy. I know some have had to let go some staff, trim expenses, but I'd say generally most are doing okay. And I think we're fortunate to be a part of a region that I think has some economic diversity in terms of the industry. We're not heavy hospitality or retail, for instance, that has been hit more so than others. But I think generally the sentiment I've gotten from most of the teams is that they're doing okay. Things aren't great, they're not terrible, but they're okay going into 2021. The trick ahead of us is going to be, how long are we in this sort of period, and what decisions do founders need to make when this becomes, month 12, month 18, month 24. And so, figuring out your cash flow, your burn rate, those kinds of things are really key. And all of them are working on those things.
No, that's phenomenal. I appreciate the perspective there. I want to zoom out a little bit. And when we think about the startup ecosystem in North Carolina, and then we think about AU, what are some of the reasons that organizations get involved with American Underground, and what are some of the reasons that they stay? If you'd speak to that for a little bit.
Yeah, that's a great question. It's interesting, Donald, because on a call with a founder who just joined AU right before you and I got on, and I was talking to him a little bit about that. And what I hear pretty consistently is that people both join and stay for the community. That, a lot of people called me and said, "Hey, how's AU doing? Y'all are in commercial real estate. People aren't coming into the office as much. How are things looking?" And, we have taken some lumps over the last 4 or 5 months. You and I have caught up a bit about that. But we've also seen over the last few months, we've seen 15 new companies join the AU. And what I hear consistently is many of them are saying, "Hey, I've heard about the community of entrepreneurs who are there, that they want to help each other." And that, I think, is a testament to the founders. I think it's a testament to the kind of mentality in Durham. And you look across the history of the city, you've had a lot of successful businesses that are part of the city of Durham. And I think a great number of them have had this kind of mindset of like, I want to build a successful company. I also want to build a successful city. You don't see that everywhere, right? Like, you spend time in the Bay, just like I do. You don't necessarily get that conversation rolling when you're a big kind of co-working space out there in the same way that you would here. And so I think, when you look across the state and you look into a place like Durham, that's one of the consistent threads that I hear. The other is AU has had a long standing focus on diverse founders, Black, Latinx, and female founders, to be explicit about that. So a lot of that has been driven by actually the work of Jim Johnson over at Keenan Flagler, who's a professor of mine when I was in graduate school, focused on leadership and diverse leadership within companies. And so we said in 2015 that we wanted to build our country's most diverse technology hub, which was an aspirational and bold goal, but it was a clear North Star. And you're a CEO, you know the power of that when you give that to a team and say, how do we go do this? It's clear, it's a stretch. It's something that's going to force everybody to get an oar in the water. And over the last 5 years, we've seen our teams grow to where 50% of them are now led by a female founder or founder of color, which is highest in the country and something that we're proud of. But at the same time, I fully acknowledge like we've got a long way to go. And just because you've got diverse leadership in some of these companies doesn't mean that it's all rosy or that the work's done. There's a lot of work ahead of us that we're going to continue to work on. But I think that's the other thing that stands out when people look kind of at the North Carolina ecosystem and at AU maybe in particular, is that we've set a pretty clear objective and we've been unapologetic about that. That's who we are. And for the listeners, I'm a white guy. So, it's a little bit odd to perhaps have a white guy saying this, but I think until we're honest about the history of this country and until white people in particular are honest about that and understand the power that entrepreneurship has to change systems and change wealth, we're never really going to get all the way in on this. And so that's where I feel like AU has such a powerful opportunity ahead of it.
No, Adam, I appreciate the entire spectrum of your comment. And then you landed the plane on it pretty powerfully in terms of what we can do to move the needle. Mm-hmm. Right? As I talk to a lot of executives now with what we're doing with the diversity movement and creating some tools for leaders to really lean into diversity, equity, inclusion, people are not shying away from it as much anymore, mm-hmm. as much as there's like, how do I participate? Where can I give? How can I make a difference? And the AU, with that momentum that you guys developed starting 5 years ago, right? You now have some, I don't want to say best practices, you have some perspectives of what has worked and what hasn't worked. You've got some real use cases and some amazing success stories, right? Which is super powerful. And then investors can lean into that moment, mm-hmm. right? Employees that would like to work at companies with diverse founders can seek you all out and lean into that moment. And I think that is something that's important as we move a lot of these conversations forward, that we can put our hand to plow in a proactive way. Right. There's a lot of discussion now. There's a lot of folks that want to move those discussions to some type of systemic action. And you all are a way to do that.
Well, I appreciate you saying that. And you, for those who are listening, have played a big role in that. So we launched a program with Google called the Black Founder Exchange that brings 10 to 12 founders to Durham every year for a week-long intensive. It's focused on fundraising. It's been an incredible program. When I am not at AU anymore, that'll be a program that I'm just, unendingly proud of. And Donald, you played a key role in that as a strong mentor for a lot of these teams to be able to give them advice and counsel about, anything and everything that CEOs deal with. And I think that the learnings that we've gotten from that program and starting to think now, like, what would it look like to scale that, to think about how we grow support for companies across the state, more companies in Durham, young people in Durham, I think is really interesting. I think you said, this observation about sort of discussion to action. And I think one of the things that's been interesting for me is to see, we're all on a continuum when we talk about race and systemic racism. You're never really arriving at some sort of endpoint where you feel like you've done the work and grasped it all. And people are at different spots along the way. And I think what I'm seeing is, some of our companies, the employees who are part of AU companies who are starting early in that, right? Like they're taking the REI training maybe for the first time, but they're starting to lean in and they're asking good questions and asking, what do I need to be doing right now? What are the things, where's my privilege showing up in this that I maybe wasn't aware of? Did I even know that I was privileged? Those kinds of things, all the way up to founders who are who have done some of that work and are saying, hey, in addition to what I'm already doing within my company, I want to be thinking about what I do outside the four walls of AU. How are we moving in the city? Where are our dollars going? Who are we investing in? Those kinds of things. That's really neat to see that sort of like move afoot, and you've been a big part of that. So appreciate having leaders like you in the city who say, hey, I'm building a successful business and I want to make sure that what I'm doing with that business is impacting other CEOs and how they're thinking about their work.
Yeah, I appreciate that. One of the things I'll extend on is you talk about the construct of privilege. And one of the things I'll weigh in on a little bit as we talk and jam this out a little bit, when you say the term white privilege, that pulls people back, right? Typically, our firm and me in particular, we talk about privilege. I'm an African-American male. I have two amazing parents, grew up in kind of the lower socioeconomic realm. But as I was moving into later elementary, high school, high school, my parents were more in the middle class. I went to very, very good schools. And so I've experienced privilege. I've experienced a little bit of both, right? In that economic standpoint. And so when I share my perspective with people and we just start talking about privilege, not in a way to judge each other, but what is our responsibility to use our privilege to now help others achieve? Now we can have an equitable conversation about moving forward. I found when we lead with white privilege, you need to understand that I don't get I don't get as much buy-in, right? Like it's
the warm fuzzies aren't there.
Yeah, the warm fuzzies aren't there. And so one of the things that Jacqueline Ferguson has done with the diversity movement, and I mentioned this for the AU, and we really want to do this if you guys are open to it, right?
Yes.
As our gift to you guys, is we've been running privilege walks and doing virtual privilege walks. And we did one for the North Carolina Chamber, and we had close to 300 people there. The ratings were 4.92 out of 5. Really enjoyed it because they got to experience the differentiation from their background and others real time.
Right.
And it allowed it to break down some walls so we could have some more powerful conversations on race and equity and growing things together.
Yeah, I just two quick thoughts on that. One, we've started a book club at AU that is around the book White Fragility, and so we kicked that off this morning. And one of the questions we're kind of wrestling with is sort of our emotional reaction when we're reading the book. And something that one of the participants in the group said that I thought was really helpful was, she said, one of the things I think we all need to do when we encounter discomfort is ask more questions, be curious in that moment. Like, it's easy, I think, in that discomfort to sort of pull back, get your arms crossed, withdraw maybe in some cases, as opposed to like, how do I lean forward and ask a better question? How do I approach this with some more curiosity? I think that to me this morning was such a powerful statement and thought that, I mentioned it, the continuum, right? Like, she just dropped another thing in on my continuum where I'm like, wow, that's powerful. That's helpful for me to grab and think about as I continue to move through and think about race and systems of race.
I think, the other thing is you talked about getting together and learning and digging into some reading together. One of the things that for the first little bit of COVID and stay at home and working from home, I have a little introvert nature to me. So it was cool. Like it was okay. Right. 6 months in, you realize how interconnected, how much energy we gain from other positive people that's so into our lives. And we've got to figure out new and creative ways to deal with that. So it pivots me to the next kind of topic. Talk to me a little bit about some of the organizations you're working with, talking to, that are having to pivot their businesses for the long term a little bit and really think about how long is the new paradigm of work in office, at home going to last? And maybe what are some examples that you're seeing that are doing it right?
Yeah. A couple of thoughts I've seen in terms of like how do I balance the work from home going into the office thing. What I'm seeing some AU teams do is sort of an A team, B team. So, let's say hypothetical, I've got a team of 10 people I might find that I can break them in half, make sure I have redundancy, right? So somebody on my A team, I can't have two people coming in on the same day who do the same thing. Because if they both were to, be exposed or something, then I've got a big problem. So the A team, B team thing, I think has made a lot of sense and works well because of what you said, the energy lift of like being in the office, even with half your team, psychologically is powerful. It's powerful to be able to bounce ideas off of each other in real time. And so I'm seeing some people taking advantage of like creating some flexibility around that. I think on the business model side, I've seen, a couple of different things. One, some of our companies that are in kind of AR, VR are thinking differently about what the sales cycle looks like. One, it's longer, right? It's taking more time to get somebody all the way through from initial pitch to signing the deal. But two, how do they use this product when people are more, more at home or less together, let's say, to get it in their hands and just say, you know what, I'm going to mail this to you. You don't owe me anything. I just want you to put the headset on, see what we can do, that allows people to like play with the product a little bit, that isn't getting on a plane and flying to make the sales pitch. It's not me sitting in your conference room, trying to bang on the table. It's just ways to kind of get stuff in people's hands when, they might have a little more downtime or they're at home and they're willing to like kind of play with something and have this sort of experience. That's been an interesting thing to hear people, sort of pivoting toward. And I'm going to be curious to see where that goes. Is that something that sticks post-COVID where people say, hey, our sales process is completely re-engineered. The days of like going and giving the formal corporate pitch in the boardroom are done. We're figuring out how do we get directly into the decision maker's hands, our product, and see what she says, see how she reacts to it, right? Like will she pick up the phone and call us after that, after we've emailed her a few times, but now she's touched it, she's put the headset on, she's seen what we can do, and now all of a sudden we got a different conversation.
That's powerful. One of the things that I'm seeing in that same vein, you talked about sales process, and I'll lean into that and talk about the sales temperament.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the things that's really difficult to do in a tough economy is have a hardcore close mentality as a salesperson.
Yeah.
Right? Because the emotional resistance to that kind of communication is really high.
Right.
And one of the things that we're seeing that's working, whether it's our digital firm Walk West or the diversity movement, is we've made a concerted effort to be teachers and share information and knowledge. We are doing a lot of, on the diversity movement, a lot of free collateral, a lot of free webinars,
Yep.
a lot of information. If you've got a small business, small budget, but you want to lean into DEI, here's some starter material that can get you started. Here's a webinar that can get you there. And one of the things that's helping that work is twofold. One, we're getting to know more people at scale, even if they can't turn the corner right now, right? We're planting seed for the future.
Yep.
The second thing is we're becoming better communicators in this moment now because we're answering a lot more questions. So we're actually getting smarter with what our market needs, because it really is tough out there from a business development standpoint to define who that target customer is that can move now.
Sure.
Because that's not based on size. That's not based on product market fit.
Yeah,
There's
good point.
so many different temperaments in a company now of whether they're able to spend money a little bit, zero, XYZ. And so anyway, that's some of the things that we're thinking about. We're doing more in terms of thought leadership and things of that nature. And so I would encourage, as your startups are looking at how to pivot their business, it's a simple thing that they can do is up the education, be a value driver for decision makers, for companies. And then for those clients that can spend money, they're going to value what you gave right at the time. And then you can rise above the crowd a little bit. And
love that
in real time that we're really working on.
That's super helpful. Thank you for sharing that. I think that is something I'll take back to the teams and share. We do every Thursday at 2:00, we do a founder stand up. So everybody jumps on, we're all on Google Meet, and those are such fun conversations because they're real, right? Like half the time it's like, man, I had to let somebody go, or I'm having a hard time filling this role and I'm trying to hire for it, or I'm just down. Like, I mean, honestly, like I'm with you. I'm a little bit more, the way I describe it is I'm an introvert who likes people. Like I enjoy people, but I need a little like me time.
I'm with you.
Yeah. You and I will like have this great hour together, and then we're like, all right, I need to go sit on the couch for a couple minutes. So where I was going with that is like, I think, everybody's sort of struggling in different ways right now. And I think one of the things that we all need, assuming we can't be together in person, is like, how do we still connect with the people that we've built relationship with? And that, I think, is one of the key things about work from home that I'm gonna be curious to watch, right? Like, can you continue to drive new introductions, new business with people you've never spent time with when it's entirely online? Like, one of my hypotheses with the work from home thing and why it went well in the early going is that in addition to everybody being freaked out, moving home and being worried about their jobs, so everybody's like burning the candle at both ends to show their boss they could do it.
Yes, sir.
What the other thing that I think happened is we all had built all this social capital with each other, right? Like, I knew you.
That's right.
We had built relationship over years. So to pick up the phone and say, hey, Donald, I'm thinking about this. I know you work in this space. Could you help me with it? Wasn't too big a leap, right? But if I don't know you and we don't have any sort of like background, what does that look like? And so the longer this goes on, I'm going to be curious to watch that. Are we in a position where it's actually gets harder for people the longer we're out of the office, the longer we're in our houses, to like open up those new channels and new doors? And that I think intersects with your point about, you got to be out there and being a thought leader. You've got to be in front of people, building those relationships, because people just aren't going to take the cold call.
That's exactly right. And, I don't want to give away too many secrets, but, we're amongst friends. You just mentioned it. People aren't taking the cold call, but they'll still take a meeting from a powerful referral.
Right.
So back to your point, the referral aspect of your network, the partnership network of your expertise, is going to be even more important when it is uncertain how people are going to take to building those new relationships. If you think about, most companies, they at least have some kind of event strategy. Right. Like, even if it's one conference a year, right? Some companies there's something that you go to, that you're going to the mixers, you're going to the cocktail parties, and those things have dramatically been altered. Yeah. In a big way. And so, no, I agree with you in terms of the gap.
Well, let me throw something out there that we're experimenting with that has been interesting. So we, at the American Underground, so much of what I think has been part of our secret sauce has been building that community. And a lot of that has been driven by what you just said, the sort of like, happy hour, the like 20-person event. You come in and say, hey, I'm going to do a workshop. Let's get 20 founders in the room. That's harder to do now. We can do it online and we can do those kinds of things, but the community building aspect is a little trickier. And so what we launched about 2 months ago is a series called the Tiny Happy Hour. So this is kind of we're riffing on the tiny desk thing, but we kept hearing from our CEOs is, hey, I'm hanging out in my backyard with a couple of friends already, right? We're like getting a drink, sitting on the back porch, talking. I miss that. And I'm sitting there thinking, well, I'm doing the same thing. What's stopping me from saying, hey, Donald, let's you and I sit out at the AU. We've got a rooftop patio. We're in the open air. Let's get 3 other CEOs from AU together and let's just sit out. We'll social distance. AU will provide a couple drinks and we're just going to talk. And Donald, these things blew up. Like, we piloted it with a small group. I sent them a note afterwards and I was like, what do you think? And they were all like, one, love being back in the space. They worked from the office for the day, so they got a bunch of stuff done. And then they get on the rooftop and it's like, oh, like I remember you, me, like, the struggles. So like they all just let the hair down and it was like, here's what's going well. Here's what sucks. Here's where I need help. And you just can't recreate that online. Like, there is an aspect to this. We're just people, right? Like, we need to see each other. We need to like emote. We need to talk to each other. And when you do that, my hypothesis here is like, we're going to unlock some things that I think will be beneficial for everybody. So we've scaled those up and I got 60 people participating in these. We're rotating them. And it's been a great way as we welcome new members into the AU. We can fold them into something pretty quickly.
That's powerful. And that's back to what we were talking about earlier, is what are ways that we pivot? What are the ways that we create innovation to get those things that we all need? And I want to cycle back to one of the things that you said earlier when we were talking about people just having the space to say, hey, things aren't going well. I'm having a tough time. and that the mental health of leaders, of their teams, is being stretched like never before. Like I am very blessed. I get to talk to a lot of really neat, successful people, and they're struggling just like everybody else. Like, I mean, it's real, and it's and it is really energizing, uplifting to be able to talk to folks in the no judgment zone. So I know that what you're doing with those mini happy hours is going to go a long way, both from a business standpoint, but just from some people to be able to just get some things out.
Yeah.
And have somebody just say, even if it's a social distance pat on the back, just like, I got you, right? I know what you're feeling.
Totally. Yeah. I think the gift, if there's been a gift of COVID, it's been that people are more honest, I think, with each other. Like, the masks are off, the gloves are down, everybody's struggling in different ways and at different levels. It's not all the same, but there is a common struggle. And I think that has let more people come into these conversations honestly. And I didn't necessarily see that a few years ago, honestly. Like, we all are prone to walk into the conversation like everything's good, like
right.
I got my stuff together, and we all know that's bull, but that's how we show up. And now people are showing up and it's like, oh my gosh, like, literally while I'm on this session with you, I'm muting here and there because I got a, almost 2-year-old that my wife is juggling, who's crying. And it's like, this is life.
This is life. Yeah. Well, and I appreciate you and family for giving us these moments, but that's right.
Yeah.
And I was, one of the things that does make me smile, I do enjoy when I'm talking to somebody business wise and their kids will just run through the screen.
Yep.
Or their kids will just jump in the lap. Right.
Yeah.
It has also created just a realness of who we are more than the business facade.
Yeah.
Because that home setting, things are just going to run together.
Totally.
Right. Like there's things that are going to run together. Let me ask this as we continue our time together, but start to crescendo. Let's now look outside of business, outside of AU. Let's look at our country.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And the discourse is not amazingly positive.
Right.
Right. We're in an environment where it's us versus them, right? Mm-hmm. Like on everything. Right. How does that make you feel? What do you think we as leaders can do about that?
Yeah.
Right. And I'm not talking about a particular issue, but I'm talking about the way we treat each other in that public dialogue is not what we would teach our kids.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah. I feel tired from it. Like, I think the thing that's hard in the environment that we're in right now is that it feels like every time something happens, I'm being super general here by design, it feels like everybody goes to their corners and yells and gripes about each other, and never the two shall meet. And so we end up in this position where it's what you said, where it's us against them. And I think it's tiring to get the bad news over and over again, to see things that are, on the spectrum from disappointing to like terrifying and incredibly sad. And then on top of that, to then get this new layer of like discourse that is at times awful, that just wears you down. It feels like, the question I have often in that is like, well, what can I do? Like, what's the sort of step to take here? And, to like call out a particular topic, I'm going to talk about policing in this country right now, obviously with Breonna Taylor, George Floyd, sadly, many, many more names. What it's caused me to do is, to the conversation we were just having about being honest, I've just been talking with my team pretty continually, like trying to create space for like, how's everybody doing? How are you showing up today in light of what happened over the weekend, in light of what happened a month ago, 2 months ago, whatever it is. And I'm seeing that same thing happen in some of the conversations I'm in with the AU community, where we're trying to encourage people to show up and just be honest about where we are. And what's key in that is to create a space where people can just talk openly and we've got people on different sides of the issue, right? Like, it's not everybody's saying the same thing, but to create a sort of sacred space where people can at least be honest. And then from there, we can then start talking about how we treat each other, but at least like give space for people to just say, this is how I'm feeling, this is how I'm showing up, and trying to, prevent everybody from jumping straight from that into solution, or straight from that into, I know what, you're saying that, but have you thought about this? Like, just stop, just listen, just let somebody have their feeling, let them share their perspective, and then somebody else will share their perspective. And we're just going to sit with that. And I think as high achieving people who are so much a part of the triangle, that's hard, right? Like, you want to jump straight into solution. And I think one of the most helpful things as a white person that I've been reflecting on is like, there's a really important step before action, which is just listening and reflecting, and just letting myself reflect on and hear what a Black person what their experience has been with around policing, what their experience is right now in this country, and just listening, and starting there. That formulates a different set of thoughts in my head about what action looks like when I'm listening.
That's powerful. And I agree with you, right? It's difficult to transition from that solution, problem solver, fix the problem mindset to a more empathetic version of the leadership persona that you need. And I've gone through, I'm a certified diversity executive, and I've been through my training and all that. I have to work on that all the time, because some of these questions are not answerable.
Mm-hmm.
And some of them, if there are answers, they're multi-generational.
Right.
So we have a minute to slow down and listen.
Right.
Because they're not going to be solved. We're not going to bring someone from one perspective to another, right, in a 25-minute pep rally, right?
Yes.
No matter how good the speaker is.
Great point.
Right? And so I appreciate the way that you're thinking about it, and the way that you share it. And from my perspective, part of my responsibility with the things I've experienced, the things I've learned, and the privilege that I've had is to take that time with leaders that I can be a very private conversation.
Mm-hmm.
They can say things about what they just don't understand.
Yeah.
That they can just speak openly honest, and they know from our experience and my persona, I'm not an overly judgmental person.
Right.
I just like people that'll meet me, not even halfway.
Yeah.
As long as we can have a conversation.
Yeah.
Where you start and where I start doesn't make a big difference to me.
Yeah.
Right. And just talk and create that space. And what I've found is that what's neat is that when working with people of impact and they can move a little bit, right? You're talking about someone that represents thousands and thousands of people.
Right.
Or a startup leader will represent
right.
thousands of people in the future.
Right.
Right. And so making that leadership impact, I think, is really, really important. So, Adam, as we wind down our time together, what would you like to share that we haven't covered, right? About what you're doing, organizations you're working with, something that's going on at the AU. I want to just give you that space and freedom.
Yeah, thank you. Well, it's been great to catch up. There are a couple things I was going to mention. One is Tim Scales on our team really led the charge on this, but we created a program right around April, May, as we were starting to see layoffs from COVID, for people who are laid off due to COVID to start their company, right? Like what does it look like if we had a participant in the program who ran Morgan Imports, which is a beloved retailer in downtown Durham. Unfortunately got let go, and he had an idea for some apparel. Cool idea. And so we created a simple application process, a free program for people to come through and participate in this. And we just graduated that cohort. It's been really neat to see them bond. We just did just like I talked about, an outdoor coffee on the rooftop Wednesday morning to just celebrate the accomplishments of these 5 new founders. One of the things that I love in difficult times is, people pivot. They find new things. They might have lost their job, but they say, you know what, I'm gonna go start something. And that energy that I'm seeing from so many different people who are showing up saying, I've got an idea, has given me some new life with AU. Like, I'm seeing people I've not met before, people who are longtime Durhamites in some cases. The guy I just spent time with, he grew up in Durham. He played football at Riverside. He has this great career, and he came back and he's like, I wanted this company. I wanted to do it in Durham. And I'm like, wow, come on, man, like, let's go. And so, seeing that kind of energy of people coming in the middle of a global pandemic who are just like, I want to build this. I want to be a part of a community of people who are building, to me is really special. So that's one thing that I'm feeling a little bit more now than I would say maybe 2-3 months ago, is a sense of building. Like, we're in the pandemic. We're settled into this as reality. What does it mean to start building now? And yeah, I appreciate the pieces you put together for TechWire, because I think you've been saying that, like, this is tough. This is hard. Take an assessment of what's going on around you, but don't be so paralyzed by that you forget to start thinking about what's next. And
That's right.
I think that's some of what we're starting to feel and see and seeing in the entrepreneurs around us, which is super cool.
That is awesome. My friend, I am glad that we reconnected.
Likewise.
The conversation we had last week was it was fun. It was energizing. We found some new problems to work on.
That's right.
Love that. Right. Back to our action orientation. And then this conversation just reminded me of that quiet, thoughtful strength that you possess as a leader. And I'm really proud of you. And I just want to share, like, person to person. I wish we were there.
Yeah.
Elbow, whatever. But, I know there's a lot of long nights and working with people and being their courage, being their strength as they're pushing through. And to do that with that amazing attitude and the skills you have, bravo.
Yeah, thank you.
I question my drive. I tell myself I'm worth it. No one's perfect. I gotta try. I'm working at my
This podcast is edited and produced by Earfluence. If you're looking for more information on how full-service podcast production can amplify your voice, build your community, visit earfluence.com. Thank you for listening, and we'll see you soon on the Donald Thompson podcast.